Welcome to the Zealous Podcast. I'm your host, Rocky Snyder. This week I've got Kerry Thompson in the house with me. He is the Director of Sports Performance for something called Fan Control Football. That's right, we've got a football league out there in the offseason, the NFL, where fans actually get to control the game. 8 teams, 50 yards, indoors, whole bunch more. We're going to find out not only how he's been conditioning the athletes, but this whole new league that is just taking it by storm. Enjoy the show. Kerry, glad to have you on the Zealous Podcast. I gotta say, I'm intrigued and I'm curious as to what you've been doing. I mean, certified strength conditioning specialist, Grambling University, but now you're taking on something else. You're taking on I won't say a new sport, but a new twist on something that is really one of America's pastimes. And we're not talking about baseball, we're talking about football, fan-controlled football. It sounds like the marriage of Xbox, virtual world, and real-time football all blended together. So first, welcome, and give me a little bit of background about your kind of path as to where you are now.
Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it, Rocky. It's been a journey, to say the least. I was in sales for 10 years, up until I turned 32 years old. And that's when I just went full-fledged into strength and conditioning. I scared myself out of taking the CSCS for 2 years. And, sales was it's just like, no matter what you do, it's never enough. So you finish 150, 200% to goal. But if you finish 115 to goal, then it's, well, what's wrong with your performance?
Yeah.
And I was coming home, I was taking it out on my family and, frustrated, just in a bad mood all the time. And I just decided that, I talked to my old lady and made the jump. And I left sales altogether and went full-fledged into strength and conditioning. So I had my first opportunity to volunteer in 2014 under Zach Woodfin at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, which is ironic that he's now the director of sports performance for the USFL. So he is who I credit most of my programming to, because when he got to UAB, we had about 40 guys that were unable to play in the spring. And we went from that, we won 2 games, to winning 6 games, becoming bowl eligible, and like literally no musculoskeletal injuries.
So you had 40 that were on injured reserve?
We had 40 guys that were beat up at UAB when Zach got there. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so they were pretty beat up, but to see what he and Coach Clark were able to come in to do, and then they canceled our program in 2014. And so I ended up going to Samford for a semester and worked with Ben Ashford, who's now at Marshall. And I had to go back to work because, I had wife and 5 kids. So, volunteering wasn't cutting the money for me at that point. So in 2016, when they originally bought the program back from UAB, I went back with Lyle Henley, who is a tremendous strength coach, man. The muscle behind the madness at UAB is always the mad scientist. That's what we call him, because he's always adding something or progressing the guys up year to year to doing, great things. I was at UAB from summer of 2016 until fall of 2017, in which we went 8-4, which is crazy that we went 8-4, probably one of the best records in UAB history. And since I left there and went to Alabama, but since I left UAB, they've won 2 of the last 3 Conference USA championships.
Wow.
So like Coach Clark and Lyle and the staff have been doing a great job there. Went to University of Alabama, which, I don't even have to say anything about that machine, that factory. Worked with Scott Cochran, worked with my mentor, who his name's Terry Jones. He was at Alabama for 35 years, man. He's seen it all, done it all, trained some of the best athletes to ever come through. And he was a very big part in me getting my first job as a strength and conditioning coach at Allen University. It's an HBCU in Columbia, South Carolina. I got my first job. I was their first ever strength coach. So I was able to go there, kind of toy around with programming, and, kind of learn what works, what doesn't work, scheduling wise. Like, everyone gives you the CSCS book on, reading and understanding facility design and program and all that stuff. But there needs to be an administrative section in that book to, recording your data, researching and all that stuff that they don't tell you about being a head guy.
Yeah.
So I was there at Allen for a year and 10 months with Teddy Keaton. We had maybe 60 kids, 64 kids starting the football program. And the only injuries that we had were a broken leg, and a concussion and a partially torn ACL on a tackle. So for us to be short of depth and have that, it shows that it works, right? A lot of our guys had had a low training age. So we were able to kind of come in, work eccentrics and things like that and stay in control and, get guys healthy and explosive and keep them healthy throughout the season with a short roster.
So Kerry, I'm curious about that, because that's at least 2 or 3 teams you mentioned where the injury incident rate dropped dramatically, and the injuries that you just listed are going to be blunt force trauma, and there's not as much as you can do about that. But the non-contact injuries that are often occurring and taking guys out for a portion of the game or as much as an entire season or ending their career is something else. So what do you attribute that to? Like, what were the secret ingredients, so to speak, in this recipe for success, and you carried along with you? What were some of the things that stand out that you will not do without when talking about strength conditioning and keeping the injury rate so low?
So it's funny you ask that. I read The Periodization of Sports Training by Bompa and Buzzicelli, right?
Bompa, sure.
Probably one of the greatest books ever written on strength and conditioning that doesn't get its due. But after reading that book, I kind of married some of the principles into things that I've learned at other universities, right? So basically, in a nutshell, we are going to spend that anatomical adaptation period where we're controlling the weight down, no more than maybe 60% max is that what we're going to go to. And it's going to be 3 to 5 seconds down in control and exploding up, getting the tendons and ligaments ready for things to come with low-level plyometrics. But with a lot of things that we'll do a corrective exercise with our core lifts. So it kind of aids guys in hip mobility, ankle mobility, and things like that. So we'll address, and certain guys are going to have like way more limitations hip-wise and ankle-wise than other guys. So for those guys, I would literally regress them down to basic ankle and hip mobility right after a core lift. So for example, I'll squat them and have them do 90-90s, or have them do a deep squat hold, or a real foot elevated hip flexor stretch, or things of that nature to kind of reinforce the movement patterns. And from there, once we get them movement wise where I want them to be within that 4 weeks, which it always improves from that time frame, because instead of depending on guys to stretch, we make them stretch during the lift and after the lift. So it helps out tremendously in things that we've done before we start to load them up. When I got to Allen, a lot of guys didn't have the mobility that I liked as far as back squatting goes. And what some people call a squat is not necessarily a squat, right? So
Sure.
I made them front squat, which they hated me for it at first. Would not let them back squat. I front squatted these guys for a year and some change. And when the next strength coach came in, which is my good friend Irvin, he was just telling me like, man, these guys are so strong because you made a front squat all the time. I made them split squat in a front rack position. So
Awesome.
it all, kind of balances out, right? And same thing at Grambling, like when I took over at Grambling, there were some guys with labrums and things like that, which I saw why, as soon as I got there, like they didn't like the row, and they did not they didn't understand that the shoulder, your shoulders, as wide as they may be, it's really not a big muscle. So you don't need 60 pounds trying to do lateral raises. And, it's unbelievable, man. Like, some just believe the heavier the weight, the better. You have to kind of reprogram them from that. So it was a fun time, like when I got to Grambling, but COVID happened, and then we ended up playing 2 seasons in 1 year. So we had a spring season and a fall season last year, in which we had two contact ACLs, and that was pretty much it.
Wow. It's
So
so refreshing to hear you say these things that, for one thing, that with your core lifts, your fundamental movements, you're pairing that up or supersetting, if you will, some type of mobility, flexibility, pliability, something in there to just keep the pattern established and not to just do it for just gross force production and how much can I lift, but the quality of the movement and and take that as an opportunity to continually kind of point the compass in the right direction. That's really nice. I don't hear too many programs like that, and it's unfortunate because I really would hope that this is something that would be kind of like the all-encompassing approach for a lot of sports. So, was that something you developed in conjunction with your mentors? Is it something that you kind of stumbled upon? What made you go from one way? Was it just Tudor Bumper's book? What was it that made you go, okay, you've already taken a leap of faith out of sales and into a world that you want to go in. Now you've got to take another leap of faith in regards to program design. So what was that made you go, okay, I'm going to just do this?
Zach implemented a lot of this at UAB. I give him a lot of credit for my programming. A lot of my programming philosophy is between that and Bumper and a lot of the articles that I've had a chance to read on posterior chain development. So I've learned, like, that was a big staple of the program with Zach as far as the corrective movement within the program. So I just took it a step further and learned a few more different corrective exercises that I could program in and further develop that movement pattern. So it helps out tremendously, along with the fact that we roll. Like, if we're not going to do anything else, we're going to roll and we're going to RDL and we go single leg RDL and we go hip thrust, because that whole posterior chain development is extremely big. I think it's a big part into why we haven't had the injuries that we've had, just simply because, everybody wants to press and overhead press and things like that, but we're going to always pull up. Like, I've had guys that developed at Grambling so much to where they were holding 50, 60-pound dumbbells between their feet in order to do pull-ups. And, it's just a testament to how hard those guys worked and bought into, hey, okay, I got to pull. If we go overhead press, we're going to always lat pull down, chin up, or, strict pull-ups. Same thing with bench press. Anything we push, we're going to pull twice as much. So we'll go. One of my favorite exercises now has become the pendulum row, because it forces guys to get into uncomfortable positions, and you can't use the momentum of the weight to help you row it, right? So underhand, overhand, you name it, dumbbells, we're going to roll all the time. So within those, understanding the push to pull ratio, understanding posterior chain development, along with a lot of things that I learned from Zach and from Lyle and things of that nature. Like, it's been a tremendous opportunity to be able to blend things together and come up with my own way of programming.
Now you got the physique of like a running back. So I mean, you're a tank. For those that are just listening, your shoulders have their own zip code from left to right. So what I'm wondering is, like, do you have some background in football? How did you play? And that's what kind of got you into the conditioning with football teams compared to, say, golfers or tennis or ultimate frisbee?
Crazy enough, man, I ran track in college.
Of course you did. Of course you did. Yes.
So I ran the 1 and the 2. My high school didn't have a football team. Ramsey High School in Birmingham, Alabama, which is crazy now because they have one, and within 3 years they won state championships. So it's kind of like, what would have happened had we had a football team? I've always loved the game. I was gonna transfer to play football, but then I ended up having a kid at 16. So, I had to work and take care of my son versus, play sports, and give it, couldn't transfer at that point. So It was, I missed the game. I loved it. I've always loved it. I coached Pee Wee football for 11 years. From my oldest son from third grade up, from my second son, second grade up, my third son, second grade up as well. So
Man, you're breeding an entire football team is what you're doing.
it's
All you
crazy.
need is like 6 more and you got the starting 11.
So my oldest son plays at Allen University. He's going into his senior year. And now my second son is going to West Georgia. We take him tomorrow to West Georgia so he can start getting ready to play as well. And my third son, he absolutely loves football. And I think, I hope my other sons don't listen, but I think he may be the one because he has a different type of focus and love for the game. Not to say my other sons don't love it, but I just, when you're around high level athletes, you just kind of see it. And I think he has the sauce.
Interesting. And now speaking of the sauce, you've kind of set your sights on a new kind of tangy sauce in the form of fan controlled football. So I don't want to kind of pull away from what we're talking about, but I mean, it's on your shirt, FCF, and it's exciting. I got to say, I wasn't familiar with it until we started talking and I looked into it. I'm going, whoa, this is pretty cool. Okay, so this is fan interactive. You've got 4 plays in which to vote on, so to speak. You register up, and how did you pivot over to fan controlled football? From, I imagine you were at Grambling and then you pivoted over, or was there something in between?
So, the old saying of strength and conditioning goes, you hadn't worked until you've been fired. So I hadn't been fired up until this point in December. And I'll just tell you that God is an amazing being, man. Like, I ended up leaving Grambling on December the 2nd. And on January 1st, I started with fan control football. So we didn't go a period without a paycheck, which I'm still just kind of flabbergasted by it, man. But I'm so thankful for it. But I was referred. So I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and there are a lot of us that are strength coaches, like Tori Becton, like Thomas Stallworth, the head strength coach for the Falcons. Tori is for the Texas Longhorns. Keith Swift, Lonnie Maddox, like all these guys that are head guys, like they are very close friends. We talk basically every day programming. We talk in group me, we laugh at stuff, but more so than not, we bounce ideas off each other's and things like that. So someone had reached out to Thomas Stallworth and he called me and was like, hey, I know you're looking for a job. It was like, this is a unique experience, do some digging on it. And so I talked to the director of sports medicine there, which is Mayfield Armstrong, Jesus Christ. And so Mayfield talked to me. He was like, have you ever heard of it? And I had never heard of fan control football. I saw it on ESPN when they said, Johnny Manziel was playing in the league. And I was just like, okay, cool. So I did some digging on it and I was just like, hey, man, like this is pretty cool. So it's 7-on-7 football, it's a 50-yard field. So I'm gonna train, I'm already thinking, okay, I'm gonna train them a little bit different than normal because now acceleration, although it's extremely important in the regular game, it's even more important on the condensed field, right? So I'm just starting to think of ideas and things like that. But like I'm one of those people that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm all in, 100%, like locked into what we're going to do. So I interviewed with a couple of people within the company. Absolutely love everybody that I worked with and still do. Like, man, it's fun. It's not one of those. It's not rigid. Like this is the way we do things, and we're gonna micromanage you. And no, like they literally was like, hey. Like once I got hired, took the job, it was like, hey, this is the order that we put in. And what you think, if you need anything else, let me know. And they just handed it off to me, man, let me handle it, let me program for the guys. We use Team Builder, in which, I don't like to give shameless plugs, but I will in this case. Team Builder has been absolutely tremendous for me programming wise from Grambling to now fan control football, so where we can just push the workouts out in Team Builder. Guys have access to them. If they don't know what the exercise is, they can click the camera and it makes everything kind of seamless. So with those time within that time frame of January to March, I kind of gave guys a AA phase and the atomic adaptation phase for 4 weeks. Gave them the option to test, but made sure that I was really specific in what I wanted testing wise. Make sure there was someone there in the videos that they had to send. And so then I gave them a little max strength and power phase, a little conjugate to kind of get them ready coming into camp. And then from there, things have just kind of took off. So it's been a great journey as far as with fan control football. I've only been here for 6 months, but it was a 6-month contract initially. We felt each other out, and I loved it. They loved what I did, and so now I'm 100% full time with them. So I mean,
That's awesome.
great,
now the season really, it occurs after the NFL Super Bowls. So sometime in February, is that right?
So we start camp. We usually start training camp like in March. And from March, we usually start playing games in April. So we're there probably mid-April until mid-June. And each week we have the first 4 weeks of the season, we have a draft on Wednesday nights where the guys, they literally come out like their first round, second round, things of that nature. And then, like I said, the teams and the owners and the people that select their teams, like they draft defenses and offensive lines based upon like their production and things of that nature. And I just was like blown away at how this worked. Even with the plays, like, there's an app you download and you pick your play and they vote on it and it's seamless. It gets down to the coaches, they call the play and they run the play. And it's just like, man, like this is cool, right?
Yeah.
And so we build a stadium. It's at Pullman Yards in Atlanta, Georgia. And like you come to the games, like every one of my friends that have come to the games have been like, dude, like this is spectacular. Like it's a little VIP section in the back where they serve food. There are boxes, like booths up above the field where they can look down. You can go in the VIP section behind the end zone and watch the game there. The grandstand seats, they're like $20. You can go in and sit and watch the games. There are food trucks outside, dancers there. It's
a party.
Experience. Yeah, it is like a party. And so I know we had Quavo is one of the owners, and he had this, he does a lot for the community here in Atlanta. And they had a charity flag football game. And literally, Tyreek Hill walks past us, like Jameis Winston's there. It's Cam Newton was there. It's just like a whole bunch of celebrities from the Atlanta area that are at the games. And it's bananas. The environment was crazy, man. But I absolutely love it. And it's gonna take something, like I don't know if I'm gonna be leaving this job willingly, because it's such a great opportunity and we're building and growing so fast that, hey, it's like I got in at the right time.
Yeah, before we recorded, before we got started underway, you told me like the first season was 750,000 viewers online, and now it's 2.5 million or something.
Yeah, so it was 700,000 initially that they were getting, every week, and now went to 2.8 million, which is like 4 times of what the viewership was. Like you watch it on Twitch, you can watch it on DAZN, you can watch it on Peacock, they'll put the games up. NBC LX, I'm sorry, we are working with them now to, just try to get on a bigger platform, because now, we have been crushing it. And people are, they absolutely love it.
Well, it's one thing to be the Monday quarterback, but to be actually a real armchair quarterback, to be watching the game, and then plays are coming up, and I've got 4 to choose from. I can give my vote in there, and so then as I understand, my ranking as I make the proper calls, does that make my ranking as a viewer, as a member, go up as well?
Yeah, so it's if your plays are picked and like it's a ranking system, you get like more points as your plays, and there's a leaderboard. At the end of the season, they usually bring those people that are on top of the leaderboard. They'll fly them out to the game so they can watch the championship game because they're like super fans. You got kids that they see the FCF logo or they'll see a Zappers jersey or whatever their favorite team is, and be like, oh my God, it's fan control football. And you just kind of thinking like, okay, well, it's starting to grow exponentially. And like I'm telling you, it's so much fun. Where else do you get to talk to the CEO and he tells you LFG, like let's fucking go on a consistent basis. Like that is our battle cry for the company. So that's what after the end of every conference call, that's what we say. So it's just like, I'm truly enjoying it. Like I'm off until January, right? So I'll have to fly to a couple of camps that we'll have between now and January. But I've not been able to spend this much time with my family and since I started being a strength coach, because summertime is when we're really at it, right? And then you got the season, and then you got maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then you're in the off-season workouts. So, it's a lot different environment, I'll say. I've been like Ricky Bobby, I don't know what to do with my hands during the interview type. But with me, I'm working on my PhD right now at Liberty. So it's kind of freed up a lot of time for me to do that and to play a little PlayStation 5 because I finally got one. So it's just like, I can't tell you how grateful I am on the journey that I've been in strength and conditioning, because everyone isn't as blessed to become a director, into a director at a legend like Grambling State University as far as football goes with Eddie Robinson, and then to come to a new venture with Fan Control Football and be named the director of sports performance and have access to GPS and ConnectSun data to be able to help with programming. And now we're going to start trying to work with Perch in order to get some velocity based training, because it kind of adds on to the more tools in your box, the more options you have to make more explosive and dynamic.
Yeah. Oh man, that's very exciting. Very exciting indeed. Now, with your programming and fan control football, you already mentioned a little bit like acceleration is going to be a key. What about like the time frame in is the game a 60-minute game with 15-minute quarters?
So it is 2 halves, and the games usually last an hour. Unless we have some magic happen, which we've had a couple of overtime games. More so than not, man, like it's over with about an hour 15 minutes. So, what we have to do programming wise, of course, still football. We still gotta, have some explosive movement. I will say this, that, as a director, I'm not a micromanager, like we have to do things this way, right? But I allowed my assistants, Reese Reyes and Matthew McKay, to the Liberty to program the offensive, defensive lines and quarterbacks respectfully, and how they felt like they need to be programmed. So our quarterbacks, Matt did an excellent job with our quarterbacks. Reese did an excellent job with our offensive, defensive line. I had the skills and the big skill guys. And basically, in a nutshell, we just worked through it, talked through programming, and I gave them full autonomy to do things. It's like, hey, I just want you to make sure that during the core lifts that we do get corrective exercises in. But other than that, hey, how you see fit is how you see fit to program it. So we're like I said, extremely excited to see how year 3 goes for the league and year 2 for us. Because now I see it's some things that we can do better, other things that I think we can that will technically stay the same, but more so than not, like programming is programming, right? We got to have explosive movements. We have to take care of hamstrings and groins, and we got to do some type of like squat, deadlift, bench, overhead press, dumbbells, whatever it is, but that also plays a major role in our volume as far as guys and mirroring and marrying the data from ConnectSign to our programming. So we got a guy that, like Andrew Jamil, for example, or James Harden, but we had guys that were running upwards of 4,300 yards on a 50-yard field and getting up to speeds of 20, 21 miles per hour. So,
wow.
It's crazy that within that 5-10 yards that they're able to accelerate that fast to get to that speed. It's unreal to me, right? So we had some exceptional athletes, but we also, manage those guys like, hey, I know the weight says 75 for doubles or 75 for triples. I want you to do maybe a single, see what it feels like. If it's not moving at a speed that we like, which we didn't have velocity base this year, so it was all coach and I, but we're watching them. Hey, that's moving too slow, so take some of the weight off and let's move it at a much better speed and kind of adjust to what guys needed versus this is the way we're going to do it and you're going to do that weight and guys are about to poop in the floor, right? So we don't want that to happen and put them at a more of a risk for injury. So it was just it's a lot of fun. Like I said, we don't have to manage the nutritional part of it. We worked with Performance 365 Nutrition, Roberta Anders and Leslie Bunchy. Like Roberta worked for Houston, the Texans for the longest. Leslie works for the Kansas City Chiefs now. So we had great information coming into our guys. They bought us blenders and things like these women are by far two of the smartest women nutritionally I've ever talked to. And so we had all those things coming together. Like it couldn't help but to be successful. And then we had an amazing sports medicine department with James On and his staff, which did a great job keeping guys, and communicating with those guys in order to make sure that we're on the same page, keeping guys healthy.
Fantastic. Truly. I mean, that's what a great team you got around you. And speaking of teams, you told me you're kind of in a bubble there. Does that mean that all the teams condition together? You do positions and so they all 8 teams are working out together, or are they separated as teams and work out separately?
So we live by position. So everyone comes in, all the DBs, all the wide receivers.
For the entire league?
For the entire league.
Okay.
And so there's like 100 and like anywhere, depending on rosters, we're anywhere between 140 and 160 guys. And we could get 3 guys to a rack. We had 12 racks. So, we were getting about 36 guys in at one time.
Wow.
Come in to get their lift in the weight room. And, it ran pretty seamlessly.
Wow, that's so unique, because then you get this built-in camaraderie regardless of what team you're on. It's almost like I would say a family, but it's definitely a much more cohesive group. If you're training with the guys that you're going to go against next weekend, that's got to add a different level of dynamic.
No, so they don't know usually by Wednesday. After the draft, we've gotten our lifts in on Mondays and Wednesdays. Then it's funny to see guys kind of jaw jacking with each other and things like that. And then we'll have an optional third lift on Thursday. More little body pump guys like to come in and do some arms or do some corrective things like that, try to take care of their hamstrings and hips. But more so than not, man, like it's really unique. And also on Wednesdays before the draft, we have this thing called a man up challenge. So basically it's like one-on-ones. So it's a receiver or DB or a tight end against a linebacker or a running back against a linebacker. And those guys they'll take rep after rep. If they win, they go again. It's kind of like, make them take them in basketball.
Yeah.
And at the end of that, whoever wins, they get like a $500 bonus for for winning the man up challenge. And it gives the owners of the teams and the people drafting like that look like, okay, well, that guy did this and man up. We might need to take him, this year, this week, a week earlier, and then the roster settle out after the 4th week. So
that's crazy. So the teams are always adjusting. You've got players that were on this team one week and then they get drafted to somebody else the next week. So they're constantly moving around. That makes it for a much more dynamic kind of sport in itself. That's crazy.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, it is by far, like, when I first heard about it, I was like, okay, man, like, is this gimmicky, or like, what is it? And after I did my digging and looked at like all the website, did talk to the last strength coach that was there, and he told me, his name's Bill Hahn. He's working for Oxfit now. He was just like, look, the only reason I left was because I'm living away from my fiance, and I got an opportunity with a company that was amazing. Other than that, I would still be there, and that told me everything I needed to know as far as about the company itself. But then to see the product and it all like go together, I mean, it's spectacular.
Now, you mentioned you're going for your PhD. Have you decided what your dissertation's for your PhD going to be?
No, I've been thinking a lot about hip coordination, as far as like as a monitor for athletic performance. Ironically enough, a lot of very good athletes can dance, right? And a lot of, somewhat average athletes or a little above average athletes don't have that same hip movement coordination and things of that nature. So I'm thinking that's the way I wanna go with it. But I'm a very, very big component of the single leg RDL. It's a movement that I've been kind of hammering home with my 13-year-old, as far as, if you can get control of that hip, you can pretty much do anything you want to do on the football field. And he's starting to see it kind of translate. And so now he's like, yeah, we're going to do this. Like, we have to do this. So between that and 90/90s and just having that, hip mobility and how much it increases sports performance. So it's going to either be from that angle. There are 883,000 hamstring articles, so I don't know if I truly want to do that. So it's kind of up in the air, but I'm really leaning towards the hip because there's not as much research on the hip coordination and the importance of a RDL versus hamstring work. So we'll see.
Wow. Well, you've got the door wide open to choose from a whole bunch of things. That's crazy. Well, this has been great. I can't believe we're kind of up against the clock here. Once again, this time flies when you're having fun talking to somebody that's passionate about what they're doing. And I'm looking forward to fan control football next year. And definitely you got a new fan to join in and register. But for those that are interested in fan control football, set us in the right direction. Where do we go and what do we do?
So the website's fcf.io. That's the website. It was a vision. It's something that they've been doing now for 8 years. It's been a baby that's been growing. They originally started it with an arena team in Utah, and they let the fans make all the decisions and voted on the roster and everything, right? The logo, the name of the team. And so they've been constantly developing it and developing it and developing it to the product that you see today. It's like I said, it's absolutely spectacular. It's not one of those no celebration. Like some of the stuff these guys do when they score is hilarious. There's a Wendy's touchdown cam that's in the back where they go and they'll get on the TV and clown a little bit and have a great time. But more so than not, it's some very talented football players there. We have some former NFL guys there, but then we also have a lot of guys that maybe flew under the radar that are tremendous athletes. So like I said, Fan Control Hoops starts in January. We'll start rolling that out, but Fan Control Football starts in March. That's when we report. And we'll usually start playing about April and we'll conclude in June. And I just think that, like I said, it's an amazing product and we're looking to get it more into more people's hands And we look forward to more people getting on board with it and coming to the stadium and seeing what it's about.
And are you ever looking for interns, people to work underneath you?
It's amazing that you said that. Absolutely. Especially if they're in the Georgia area, it's an amazing experience. Like I said, I had 2 assistants, and I had 3 interns. And depending on, if they're here and they're coming from out of town, they'll be able to stay with us and eat with us. And it just, like I said, it's a non-paid position, of course, but we're working on at least trying to get a little compensation for it. And my interns absolutely loved it this year. I enjoyed having them. My assistant, Matt, did a great job with our intern curriculum program and ensuring they were learning and teaching. I would go over things with them as well. So it's, a great opportunity for anyone that's looking to be involved with, high level sport.
And who should they contact? Like where should they go?
They can send their resume to me at Kerry, Kerry, at fcf.io. And I'll get their resume and look over it, because we're going to start looking for interns within the next maybe month or 2.
Wow, very cool. Kerry, I can't thank you enough. This has been great. I wish you all the best with fan-controlled hoops as well as fan-controlled football. This is an exciting time. I see a lot of brightness on the horizon for the leagues and for yourself as well. So thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, man, Rocky, thanks for having me on, man. Anytime you need me, man, I'll be here.
Right on. And that's a wrap for another episode of the Zealous Podcast. It's not like you need another sport to follow, but what the heck? You've got fantasy football and you got fantasy every other sport, but why not fan-controlled football and fan-controlled hoops? All kicking off next year for another season of football, but a new inaugural season of basketball. FCF.io. Thank you, Kerry Thompson, for coming on. And we're just going to check back with you as the season progresses next year and see how things are going. In the meantime, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Rocky_Snyder, and tell this to friends. Make sure that they know Zealous Podcast is out there for them too. Have a great week.